Shane White, and this is The Process.
Hey gang, Shane Patrick White here with another edition of The Process. On today's process, I have a series of videos I want to share with you that I'm titling the Speedball Challenge. Now, my friends at Speedball Art sent me some inking gear that I wanted to tear into in real time. I wanted to show you how I might use them so that it informs you how you might use them. So I've got cartooning nibs, I've got lettering nibs, they even sent me some calligraphy nibs as well, and a bunch of ink to try. And so I go about trying them, and it should be kind of fun and experimental. I do some conventional stuff with them, and then I can do some unconventional stuff with them as well. The one thing I will add that in the video that you'll see is that I talk about soaking the nibs in distilled white vinegar. Now, the idea behind that was to break down some of the manufacturing coating so that the ink sticks to the nib. That way you can draw straight lines and have no interference. But after soaking them for 15 minutes or so, they will end up rusting when you try to wash them off in water later on. So I would just wipe them down with a cleaning product or white vinegar and give them a quick rinse. Don't soak them in anything other than ink. So with that in mind, sit back, relax, and enjoy the videos. And hopefully, if you like what you see, you'll comment, subscribe, you'll tell a friend, and you'll have fun. So until next time, thanks for watching, and take care. Hey gang, Shane Patrick White here with another edition of The Process. On today's process, I've got something special for you. It's called the Speedball Challenge, which in the intro, you probably already guessed what this is all about. So the friends at Speedball decided to send me a bunch of supplies. This is just one of many different things that they sent me, but I thought I would do a thing that I'm calling Speedball Challenge, which is basically to take these products right out of the package and show you how I would use them and then talk about them as I do use them. First kit I'm going to use is the sketching kit, which includes 6 nibs. And the ink they sent me is a calligraphy ink palette kit. So that's going to be a set of, 10 colors? Something like that. And that is interesting because I could probably use this as a palette and, I don't know, use it with a brush or something, but I'm just going to probably take and use the ink right out of the bottle. I'm using a 34-pound slick Hammermill paper. Ouch, that's really loud. And I'll describe what's in each of these, what is in each of these kits as we go. That way it gives you a sense of what you're getting into. What's nice is they're convenient. When I was first starting out, I had to buy each of these separate nibs individually. So it comes with I don't know, I haven't looked at this in years, or anything like it in years. Oh, look at that. Shows you all the cool things you can do. So right out of the gate, look at that. Instructions on cross-hatching and contoured lines and wavy lines. And even some calligraphy stuff, which we're going to get into later. So that's cool. Yeah, very exciting. So that comes with, I believe, every kit they send out, and I ended up getting about 5 of these things. So I will go over each one of them. Like I said, this is the sketching kit, and let's break open each of these guys. Let's see what we're working with. Now I have a lot of these nibs already, but because I want to kind of do this as a real-time sort of thing, not only am I recording the audio live, but if I make a mistake, you're going to see it real-time. Won't that be fun? Okay, so the first nib out of the gate is a Hunt extra fine? Yeah, extra fine. which I've used those before. It's a really good nib. What's this? This is a Hunt. Boy, it's hard to read these. So small. 108. I think that's a pretty soft nib, if I remember correctly. And that will go with this holder. The brown holder is usually for the barrel styled nibs. This is a Hunt 107, which I've talked to you about before, and I have a lot of those. And then this is the Hunt 102, which if you've seen a recent earlier video I did called Advanced Crosshatching 2, you'll know that's the one I used in that. And this is the Hunt School nib, round pointed, number 56. So I'm assuming, like when my mom went to school, those were the kinds of nibs they used to write with, because they didn't have ballpoint pens back in ye old times. So anyway, and then finally, the last nib here is the Hunt. It's a Hunt Drawing. That would be the number 99 nib. Now you can see each of these nibs are a little bit different. This goes in the holder as such. But one thing to keep in mind with nibs, I will point out to you, is that they do have a bit of a coating on them. Usually I'll take vinegar and wipe them down, but instead I just have a cleaning solution that I use to help wipe away some of that residue. So it's good to do this with new nibs. I guess I would probably choose white vinegar over this as opposed to doing it this way. And if you just let it soak for an hour or so, it should clean off some of the oil and whatever manufacturing stuff they have that they use in the process to make these nibs. Now these are stainless steel nibs. Well, they tend to be stainless steel. I don't know. They're steel nibs. They could be spring steel. I have no idea. I should call them, find out. But they're steel nibs, nonetheless. And they have a tendency to have a lot of spring. Obviously, you can abuse them, but why would you? They'll treat you nice if you treat them nice. So, for the sake of argument, it's probably a good idea to always keep your nibs clean after every use, as well as cleaning them off initially. Now, my first experience with pen and ink nibs from Speedball was when I was very young. My mom actually had a kit that she handed down to me. So when she was in high school art, she still had a bunch of supplies, and that's really when it first started for me, is when my mom handed me her unused inking supplies, and I got down to business. It was love at first nib. Yeah, I know, cheesy. But it was really cool. I really enjoyed it. So these inks have to be shaken up. They're calligraphy inks, so I don't know much about them. I've never used calligraphy inks. But for the sake of clarity, let's go with, let's see, that's Blanc white. I'm assuming this is silver. Well, I don't like the fancy stuff. Let's just go with black. There it is, the super black. Now you'll notice this is the same super black that I usually buy in the 32 fluid ounce. And this is usually the way I buy it, because it's the most economical and it makes sense. But for the sake of argument, let's just use this right out of the gate. I'm gonna go with a black. I'll set all these beautiful colors here. Actually, let me go through the colors real quick. That way you know what you're getting in the kit, though I'm sure you can find it online. This is indigo blue. It does not look like indigo blue that I know, but it looks more like a manganese blue. So, whoops, keep that in mind. Let's see, they're calling this a teal green, which is pretty close to what a teal green would be. burnt umber. It looks more like burnt sienna, to be honest, because burnt umber is a cooler brown. That's fine. This is a scarlet red, which is pretty close to scarlet red compared to everything else I've used. This is more of a naphthol red or cadmium red medium. This is deep purple, though I would argue to say that this is probably more of a cobalt violet than anything, which is a beautiful, beautiful color. So you're not losing anything with that. Emerald green, that's really what you get. It's more like a permanent green. But yeah, emerald green, I could see that, sure. You have silver, as I've said. White, which, well, we'll see what white's all about, because white is a hard ink to make work. And here's gold, which has a lot of flecks of shiny pigment in there to make beautiful music, which I'm sure I'll be using later when I actually get down to business and show you some calligraphy stuff. So one of the first things I do with any kind of tools is I try to create a library of profiles, pen profiles. Because I have so many nibs, it's good to get an idea of what each nib does. So in doing that, I've created a little go-to page in a sketchbook that helps me in a blink of an eye figure out what nib I want to use for what project. So this is going to get a little messy, but that's okay because we're sketching today and we can be as messy as we want to be. I think there's a song with the same name. Okay. So this does look like Superblack Ink. I'm going to load up, let's see, let's work from big to small. So this is the Hunt Extra Fine. Don't know why it's called that, but we'll find out. And then I think I'll load up the other one. Let's see, this is the Hunt 108. Since I use the Hunt 107 a lot and 102 a lot, I'm going to start with something that's maybe a little less familiar. So here's the Hunt Extra Fine. Now Hunt, I don't know if it's owned by Speedball or if it was a partnership, but at some point they became one and the same. Hunt Extra Fine. So this is the Extra Fine nib. I'm doing rather simple writing. So usually I'll start with some circles, and then I'll press down, further, I'll do lines. So I'll try to do a little bit of, what do you call it, paper in there. If you push down too hard on certain papers, it will get stuck in the tines of the nib. So this gives me an idea of how variable the line weight can be. And so then I do something where I'm like, well, how much fluidity and movement do I have? And that's pretty good. Sometimes with the pointier nibs, it'll catch and it'll spatter. So that's kind of annoying. But to take this on a little tour, I end up doing some cross-hatching. And then as I'm doing this, I'm thinking in my head, what are the properties? Is there a lot of spring? Is it soft? Is it stiff? And then I'll write that down. I'll say this is, medium stiffness, good spring, good flow, versatile. And I'll make a whole list of these types of things in my sketchbook. So let's set some of these nibs over to one side.
We'll just do like a quick sketch or something, I don't know. Just to show you kind of what I'm working with here. So just to get this, let's do a human head. I don't know why, because I like humans. We relate more to faces than anything else. This reminds me of a guy I used to see at the gym all the time. That was a little creepy. And that's what's cool about these inks, is that you could probably take this little container and keep refilling it with the larger container. So if you wanted to go to a figure drawing session, you have your little kit with you, and you can just bust this out and get this really cool line weight that not too many people are going to get with a normal pen or with a Wacom tablet. But now you can show your expressive pen skills and penmanship. I'm thinking. Yeah, so that's not too bad, right? And the thing about your inkwell, it's always good to keep in mind that an inkwell with a narrow opening is going to be much, much better than one with a wide mouth. And the reason for that is your ink will dry out at some point. So when you open this up initially, it's going to flow really well. It's going to feel really good. And after a fashion, if you are under warm conditions, it will start to evaporate some of the shellac inside and cause problems for you. So, what do we have here? Let's go with, okay, so the next largest one, let's do that. I think this is going to be the Hunt School. Now, I'm not going to necessarily go and do all the profiles for each one of these, or maybe I could, I don't know. I feel like maybe that might be important for you to do. Ooh, that's really stiff. Hunt School. Now this one is very stiff. It's, wow, you can feel the steel just responding back to you. So there's some circles, I'm pressing down. There's some lines. Look how fine the line I can get on this. Now the more I push down, the more range I get. It's really aggressive. It's really wanting to chew up the paper like a pit bull. Okay, so this nib is really interesting. Let's see if we can add to this. Wow. So I was pushing really hard, and that's why a lot of that ink came out. But this is one of those pens, unlike the extra fine, you can mostly go one way. You don't want to go the other way because it starts catching rather quickly into the paper. And you have to be careful. You know, there is a certain amount of tensile strength that you're fighting against. So if you're used to pushing down hard, this might be a good nib for you. Now this is me holding it really light, really light. So you can get nice hairline sort of point from that. That's pretty cool, right? So let's do some shading. That's pretty good. I'm squinting. Wow. It's also because it wants to throw out the ink quite readily, meaning because the ink flows from the nib pretty quickly, you might have to re-engage the inkwell a little more frequently as you go. Just sketching. Maybe he has a button. Maybe a little button. Or two. Seven. Okay. What do I feel about that? I don't know. Not sure how I feel about this nib. It's a rather rigid nib. It's not my favorite. It has its place, I think, maybe if I was working on a clay-coated surface, which has a lot of sizing on it, and therefore the nib would skate across rather easily. And that's the thing you want to be able to work with something that's going to give you the best performance. So each nib, just as much as each ink, has probably a very, I don't know what you'd call it, like a very good partnership with the right substrate. So the substrate I'm using now is pretty smooth, really, really smooth, but it's also kind of thin. So now we're using the Hunt 99. And you can see, just by me doing this, you can see that the nib is stretching quite easily. The other thing is it gets buried pretty deep into the handle, so keep that in mind. So this is a super, super soft spring to it. Look at that. It's amazing. So if you have a really, really light touch, you might like this nib. But look at the range you can get here. Look at that. I can go really hair thin, something medium, and then big, and look at that. It's like, it feels like I'm painting with a brush, which is really neat. And then cross hatching. Oh yeah. Now see, this pen nib seems to work with my personality type. You know, I have sometimes heavy hand, I have sometimes light hand, but if I can control that, that's pretty good. Let's do another character or something. I definitely have to load this pigment up or onto the nib. You see how it's loaded up? It should flow pretty easily. Wow, okay. What's cool about this nib is that it's got because of the range that takes very little effort to administer, it definitely gives you a different look altogether. If you're familiar with the works of Bill Sienkiewicz or Ralph Steadman, you might know what I'm talking about. If not, they're both illustrators. Sienkiewicz has worked in comic books for a number of years. Ralph Steadman has illustrated for many major publications back in the 60s and 70s. Wow, I really like this. This one's kind of my favorite. You can do some fun things. So I don't want to belabor these too much because we're just messing around. We're trying some stuff. This isn't going to be like one of those really long episodes. I just want to get you familiar with the sketching tools that Speedball makes and to basically give you an idea of what I think is kind of cool about them. The one thing I think, you know, because there's a lot of range, the one thing I wish is that it held more ink. And because the nib gets driven down into the barrel of the handle, you don't have the opportunity to store more ink in the nib itself. So given that, you might need to take and dip the pen a lot more. So the next nib I'm using is the Hunt 108. So oops, wow, this is also really soft. I think I remember this nib from my other set. Hunt 108. Now, unlike the Hunt 99, whoa, come on, buddy. There still might be some manufacturing stuff on the steel. This is not doing what it needs to do. Sometimes on these barrel type pieces, you have to spray them down again. On the last video I did, I had to spray it down, I think two or three times before I could use it right out of the gate. So let's have another go at this. All right, let's go Hunt 108. I'm feeling good about this because it reminded me of the Hunt 99. Wow. As much ink as there is, look at this. As much ink as there is, I cannot get it to go past the nib. That's curious. Let's see if I can make this work for me. Come on. Incredible. I'm trying to do a product review, more or less. Believe me, this is a good nib. Just probably, to be honest, I bet I should probably soak those in vinegar. But let's just go to the 102. No, 107. We'll just jump to the 107. If the 107 acts the same way, then I'll take a break. Soak these in vinegar and then get back to you. Looks like the 107 is working fine. Sometimes nibs can be faulty. So the 107 is a stiffer nib. It's the complete opposite of 108. You really got to push down. So here's some fine lines, here's some medium lines, here's some heavy lines. That's me just putting my pork chops right into it. Look at that, I can go up and down and it doesn't quite catch, so that's good. And now, sorry, 108, it did not work. Unfortunately, sometimes some nibs do not come out of manufacturing with the same level of quality control as one would hope. I would imagine if you were to do quality control on a product, you would have to do it per lot. So say they produce 600 or 6,000 nibs in a lot, they would test 10 or 20 in that lot. Another secret when you're working with nibs is to have a piece of junk paper nearby, so you can just sort of get all the excess ink off. You sort of do this a couple times, and then you're ready to work on your main piece of illustration. Otherwise, you'll get these blotches, and it really messes things up and can be very disappointing. So that's just another quick technique that you want to keep in mind when doing your own pen and ink stuff. So the 107 is pretty cool. I like it. I sometimes, even though I tap the side of the thing, I'll still blot the ink on another piece of paper just to be sure. So back to what I was saying, I do like the Hunt 107. It definitely has its place and purpose. If I was doing, say, buildings or something with a straight edge, for instance, I would feel more comfortable getting a consistent line. Now I'm just basically taking what's left of the barrel of the nib and putting the straight edge against it, so it's balancing between the holder and the nib. And that's how I pull straight lines. It takes some practice, and it's definitely worth practicing because it's a nice skill to have. You never know. See, again. Golly, that's crazy town. Okay. I think you also notice if you work on really smooth illustration board, you'll enjoy this experience more because it's a lot more forgiving. It'll feel more like working with a Bic pen or a rollerball or ballpoint pen because it has a tendency to skate over very smooth surfaces. Another secret with a pen nib is if you go over an area that's already wet, it's more likely to shoot out all the ink that's loaded up in the nib. That's why when you do some strokes, like this. Hello. Working. When you do some strokes like this, let it dry. Go to another spot of the illustration and work on that, and then come back. Oh yeah, just also, I guess I'm just really slapping this pen around. Keeps losing ink left and right. I don't usually move this quickly when I'm inking on an illustration, so keep that in mind. Okay, and last but not least is the Hunt 102, which I've used for a very long time. It's one of my favorite nibs. A lot of comic book artists use it. They've used the Hunt 102 for as long as there's been comic book and comic strip artists. Clean up some of this mess. Hunt 102. Now this is a nice medium kind of nib. It has a tendency to be very friendly, very user-friendly. Kind of like the Hunt Extra Fine for the larger handled pen nib I was using. This is, I would say, the smaller version that is its equal in terms of handling. Now, if you have bigger hands, you might want to put some tape around the handle of your pen, which helps tremendously in being able to control the nib itself. And it also gives your fingers a much needed break because they will hurt after a long session of drawing or inking. Okay, so let's try some sketching. This is not as easy as I would hope it would be. Sometimes you have to coax the ink out. It makes no sense to me sometimes. So you can do contour drawings, you can do cross-hatching, you can make small marks. I don't know if I'd recommend using this for stippling, because more often than not, you'll end up with a blotch, and I know that can ruin your stippling efforts. Personally, I'm not a fan of stippling. It's got its place, I suppose, but there are some people who've managed to make a career out of it and they've done really well. If you're familiar with the artist Drew Friedman, he used to do likenesses in stippling, but they were like caricatures. They were really funny, really good stuff. I think he used to do it for Raw magazine back in the day. But now I think he does mostly gouache because it just took so long. And you can get the same result. I still like his stippling the best out of anybody I know. So you can see it's a beautiful line. You get just a really great quality. It has a classic look to it. By just changing the angle a little bit, you can get some nice direction going. So yeah, definitely I would recommend the sketching kit if you really wanted to get started with pen and ink work and were a little nervous, a little unsure. Grab the sketching series, get a small bottle of Speedball Superblack Ink, or a large one. Who knows? You might get addicted, and you might just want to keep doing this over and over and over again. But I think you'll find that it's got a lot of cool things going for it. I know I like it. I mean, I've been using pen and ink for most of my life. I mean, really. It's one of the first art tools outside of Crayola crayons that I started using. So, and I've tried other brands of ink. As a little bit of an anecdote, I recently recorded a video where I used a different kind of ink because it said it was waterproof and bulletproof, and I was like, okay, that's all the proof I need. Let's just jump right into this. So I wanted to do like I'm doing here, just open up the package and go. But because this is not a brand name that I'm as familiar with, I entrusted about 2 days worth of filming on an illustration. One thing that happened was when I went to erase the pencil marks underneath, a lot of that ink came up and turned gray. All the work that I had done for those 2 days stopped being solid and almost became transparent. So that spelled death for that piece. So what's an artist to do? I ended up having to go back in, and to be honest, I had to pull out the Speedball Superblack Ink and redo about 60 to 75% of that job. And boy, I'll never use that other ink again. I can tell you that right now. And the other thing that I should have known, I mean, I'm a professional and I should have done this, is no matter what you use, no matter what tools you use, always try the tools out on a piece that you don't care about. Take it for a spin, take it sketching, break it in, put at least 10 to 20 hours in on the tools. You're definitely going to have a better understanding of what you're working with. Try it on different substrates as well, because you'll never know what you're getting. I read the fine point, or the fine print on the actual bottle, and it said, bulletproof on cellulose style paper. And I was like, okay, great. It's kind of an important thing to know. So why I had to have my glasses on to be able to read that, I don't know. Shouldn't have, but there you go. They sold me on it, and I am a little disappointed by that product. So from here on out, I will definitely, if I'm going to do a product review, I would buy duplicates to try out first ahead of time. That way I know there's no gotchas, no surprises, and nothing that's going to really make it a difficult review. And to be able to inform others of the full spectrum of what to expect when getting a product. About the only thing I can say is I've been using Speedball for such a long time that I'm pretty sure I know what I'm getting when I open up any of their product lines. So that's it for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you do, let me know. And let Speedball know. I'm sure they'd like to know that they were getting some free advertising, because they gave me some free stuff. So why not return the favor? You know, it's about community and it's about supporting each other. So yeah, do yourself a favor. Treat yourself right.
As always, thanks for watching. And also, don't forget to subscribe to The Process. And please, if you have more questions, feel free to leave a comment below.